This had been a dream of mine for 64 years. And
Wow.
since I watched Alan Shepard as the first American go into space, I turned to my mother and I said, I'm going to do that. And it's been my dream ever since. I didn't think it would take this long, but I was excited. I was exhilarated.
You talk about 10 years of planning.
Oh,
So
sure.
when you decided, hey, I'm going to go up on a rocket, was it just like an idea that you kept in your mind for the past 60 years? Or tell us about your planning, like your goal setting.
Sure.
Like,
In 1979, my mentor, I named Bill O'Hearn, goes, well, have you begun your decade planning? And I looked at him, what the heck is that? And he goes, well, the 1-year planning is what drives your behavior. The 10-year planning, decade-long planning drives your life. You get to design your life. Great, big, hairy, audacious goals that you set, and you say, that's where I want to be in 10 years. And you create that picture and you visualize it. And so to answer your question, Tom, that was my biggest personal goal was I wanted to go to space. And every quarter for the last 45 years, every 3 months, I've gotten my goals out and I've reviewed that and I've visualized and pictured going to space. And it took a long time to manifest.
This story is just so awesome. To know that you didn't give up hope, right? That you knew it was still coming, even though you kept putting it back on your decade planning and saying, when the time is right. And it shows not just the power of believing and asking, staying with it, but then also the action.
This podcast is for the rebels,
The misfits, the dreamers.
who really are sick of living on autopilot.
Every week, we strip away the excuses, we break the rules, we give you bold, actionable strategies.
So you can crush your habits that hold you back,
Ditch the job you hate.
build a life that you actually want to wake up to.
No fluff,
No permission slips
just real talk, proven tools, and a healthy dose of rebellion.
to help you break free and rise higher and own your next chapter.
This isn't just a podcast, it's an escape plan.
If you are sick of just following status quo, you have just found your people.
I have to say, I'm so excited about this episode. I've been waiting for this for months. We finally got Jeff Elgin, who is a mentor to Mel and I, and the founder of FranChoice, a 25-year-old franchise consulting company that helps people find their dreams all over the country. Jeff has recently gone on a trip to space on Blue Origin spacecraft, and we're here to talk about this. I guess it's more than 3 seconds of guts, I think, that I would need to go up in space. Jeff, thank you for being here. Mel and I were so honored.
My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure.
So Jeff has been teaching, Jeff, we've known each other, 27, 28 years. And if there's one person in my life that has taught me over and over and over about pushing into discomfort, right? If something scares you, that's when you should probably push towards that. And Tom and I have watched Jeff do this over and over and over. We have so many examples that he has shared with us. But obviously, going to space is just absolutely incredible. So, Jeff, thanks for being here and also for being mentors and friends to Tom and I for so long.
Yeah. Again, my pleasure. But I will tell you, it took no 3 seconds of guts to go to space. That I'll get into that, but I wasn't the least bit scared about that. Plenty of other things.
That's incredible. I think I might have been more scared than Jeff was watching
Yeah.
you.
Right. We all watched it. We gathered in my family. We gathered around the TV. We watched the launch via the YouTube channel that Blue Origin has, and it was great. I mean, everybody was just floored by the whole thing. But I just wanted to start there real quickly. Like, you weren't scared? Like, how is that possible?
Tom, this had been a dream of mine for 64 years. And since I watched Alan Shepard as the first American go into space, I turned to my mother and I said, I'm going to do that. And it's been my dream ever since. I didn't think it would take this long, but I was excited. I was exhilarated. I was thrilled. I was so pumped, full of adrenaline. You can't believe it. I was about as happy as I've ever been. Scared? No. Nervous? No. None of that at all. I had no time for that. But I had a lot of time to prepare mentally before we got to this point. And when it takes 3 seconds of guts, usually in my experience, is something that uh, that that is sort of more immediate, and that's when you've got to remember the key word is always attack. Attack the fear.
Pack the fear. That's good. I don't think I've heard you say that before. I think
Um,
that's the
so
whole basis of the 3 seconds of guts. That's what we've learned is that, you know, I always think it takes all of this time, all of this preparation, but really it's in an instant, right? It's making up your mind and
Sure.
attacking the fear. What a great term.
so Jeff, what's an example of that, like attacking the fear in your life?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the first time I had to show 3 seconds of guts, a long time ago. I got out of college. I was an auditor. Nice, safe, conservative jobs. Accountants always work. Blah blah blah. That's what my mother told me. And this was way back in the '70s. I was making $1,100 a month. I mean, good money. I had a car, a free car that the company bought me. I thought on top of the world. And then the big companies, because that's what you did in those days. You went to work for a big company expecting to spend 30 or 40 years there. And I'd been there about 2.5 years, and I got a raise, and I was kind of disappointed because my raise was like $9 a week or something, and you weren't supposed to compare notes, but of course we all did. There was another guy, and I was a very highly rated auditor and got everything right. There's another guy who was a complete slouch and never did much of anything, and he said, "Yeah, I only got $6 a week increase." And I thought about that and I thought, you're telling me the difference between your best guy and your worst guy is $150 a year? Because that was the message. And I talked to my boss about it. And he goes, "Yeah, that's the way it works. That's corporate America. Shut up." And by the way, I'm going to have to reprimand you for talking to other people about raises because you weren't supposed to. And now, fast forward 2 nights later, because I'm furious about this. 2 nights later, my life insurance agent came over to my house because we just had a baby, and he wanted to sell us my second baby, and wanted to sell some more life insurance. And somehow in the conversation it came up. I was complaining about the percentage of my income I was spending on life insurance premiums. He goes, "Yeah, I understand. Now I'm spending far more than you, but thank goodness that's only like 1% of my income." And I went, "Wait a second." And I'm trying to do the math in my head, and I realized now I'm making about 13 or 14,000 a year thinking I'm on top of the world. This guy's making about 70 grand a year, and he's a buffoon. I mean, I'm sorry, a nice guy, but he was a buffoon. And I instantly thought, what the heck am I doing here? And he had been sending me recruiting stuff and everything for a long time. And I just ignored him. But I said, if I got the math right, you're trying to tell me you're making $70,000 a year? And he goes, "Yes." And it goes up by about 10 or 15 grand every year because of renewals like this. I said, "Okay, I want to skip it. I'll buy the insurance, but I want to talk about going into life insurance business." And I went over the next day and quit my job, gave my notice, and went in as an independent business person. And for the most part, have been an independent business person ever since. That took some guts. I had 2 kids. The oldest one was 13 months old and a wife, and this was a straight commission sales job. You talk about going from ultimate security to ultimate insecurity. That took a little blast of guts. Boy, I'll tell you, my wife was very supportive. Thought I was absolutely crazy. And the worst month I ever had in a life insurance business, which was the very first month, I made about 3 grand. You make it work. You attack the fear and you just make it work, and things have a way of working out.
That was the beginning. That was the
Yeah.
beginning. Because how many people can relate to being scared of taking, leaving that security and the comfort of their full-time job and then going out on their own? I mean, that started the mission of FranChoice, probably, of helping people realize their dreams with you doing it for you and your family.
Yeah. I've
Okay.
started a number of different operations as an independent business person. And I'll tell you, about half of them have been incredibly successful and they're so much fun. About half of them have been complete soul sucking failures where you're feeling suicidal. It's the desperation is overwhelming, and you just can't believe it. I mean, life has a way of knocking you down hard sometimes. And you know what? The hardest thing for me to learn way back when that happens is you just got to get up. You got to get back up. The secret to success in life, if I had to sum it up in one thing, is all you have to do to be successful is is get up one more time, then life knocks you down. That's all
It's
you
so
have.
funny that you said that. I got this coffee cup that I picked up, Vince Lombardi, from Lambeau Stadium, and on the back it has exactly that quote. It's not whether you get knocked down, it's whether you get up.
How perfect is that? Just keep
Well,
going.
like I said, you just get up one more time, then you get knocked down and you're going to be fine. That just has to be your attitude. And I'll tell you another thing, at least with me, every single time that I've had a complete soul sucking failure, the hardest thing of all was to go look in the mirror and ask myself that question, where did that failure come from? And I'll tell you, every single time the answer was in the mirror. If I was honest about it, I look in the mirror and say, you know what, you screwed up, and here's where you screwed up. And then I thank God the first time it happened, I had a really strong mentor who said, okay, and then the question you need to ask is, what can I learn from that? What can I learn from that? How do I get stronger? How do I get smarter? How do I get better out of these failures? And every time I had one of those giant failures, within 6 months or so, I was right back up on top again. And so, but boy, you're right. 3 seconds of guts just to stay alive and go, I don't know how, but we're going to get past this. I'm going to get
Keep
back
going.
up and I'm going to attack fear.
Keep going. That's what it's all about. So I think that was one of the questions that we wanted to ask you is, what is one of the main decisions that you look back and say, I attacked fear, I had 3 seconds of guts that really truly changed your life? Would you say it was the first time or was it something a
Oh,
different time?
definitely. Definitely, because it works so well. And if the first time you try something, it fails, the very first time in your life, it's going to be real hard to get 3 seconds of guts back. But if the very first time it actually worked out, then that gives you such an advantage when you get the failure. And of course, every single deal I've ever done, I had just as much confidence going into. Some of them were great and some of them were total failures, but I was completely confident each time. And I'll tell you another thing, each time you attack the fear, it gets easier. The hardest time you'll ever have to get 3 seconds of guts and attack the fear is the first time. And then because once you do and you win, you overcome it, then life knocks you down again and you go, oh, I've been here before. I know it. You just get out of the hole and keep on going.
Keep going. It's all about keep going. I
Love,
love that.
love, love that. I wanted to ask you though, we talk about, well, you talk about 10 years of planning.
For
So
sure.
when you decided, hey, you turned to your mom and like, hey, I'm going to go up on a rocket. Was it just like an idea that you kept in your mind for the past 60 years? Or tell us about your planning, like your goal setting.
Sure.
Like, how does
I've
that
always
work?
been a I've always been a goal setter. I always set annual plans, and annual plans, what I want to accomplish in the next year, those are very tactical. I got measurements. I know the activities I need to do. I know what I want to accomplish. In 1979, my mentor, a guy named Bill O'Hearn, talked to me and we were going through planning exercises. And he goes, well, have you begun your decade planning? And I looked at him and went, what the heck is that? And he goes, well, the 1 year planning is what drives your behavior. The 10-year planning, decade-long planning drives your life. You
Hmm.
get to design your life. He said, so what you do is you sit down and explain the whole process, go through some different areas, could be financial goals or business goals or personal goals, whatever it is, but great, big, hairy, audacious goals that you set and you say, that's where I want to be in 10 years. And then during that 10-year period, unlike an annual goal where you're monitoring your activity daily or weekly to see if you're on pace, basically you set those goals, those decade goals, and then you just ignore them, except once a quarter, you take 2 or 3 hours, you sit down and you review those very carefully again. You bring them all back to top of mind. You plant them solidly in your subconscious. This is where I want to be. Now, I've still got, 9.5 years left to go, but this is where I want to be. And you create that picture and you visualize it. And what happens is, so to answer your question, Tom, that was my biggest personal goal was I wanted to go to space. And and every quarter for the last 45 years, every 3 months, I've gotten my goals out and I've reviewed that and I've visualized and pictured going to space. And it took a long time to manifest. And I'll tell you another thing about decade planning. The lesson I've learned over and over again is I didn't set the goals big enough. It's
Huh.
amazing what changes take place in your life when you're focused on it. And I just always looked back and went, I thought too small. I mean, life will give you anything you ask, but you have to ask. And so ask big and it'll happen. Well, that one took a long time, but 3 or 4 years ago, William Shatner, Captain Kirk went up in this rocket. And I watched that and I immediately said, oh my God, he's 90 years old. He's about 200 pounds overweight. If that guy can go to outer space, I too. And then, and it took a couple more years after that because I wanted to get the company and the transition in place to where I was sure that everything would continue to operate, just in case something happened. And, but anyway, then I did the day we hired him, I contacted Blue Origin and said, so how do we go? How we do this? What do we got to do? And 6 months later flew. And so, yeah, it was the power of that, of planting those big dreams in your head and designing your life with a purpose, I think other people call it. Well, what an amazing thing to think that you can really do that. You really have that much power over yourself. Absolutely. There's just a simple process you need to follow.
I think what's most amazing to me is that when you think about, 40 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, there was no way to get to space for a regular guy unless you're going, you know what I mean? It's like
Right.
that's that's the ultra cool part, in my opinion, is that you were doing it. You didn't know how. The how did not matter.
That's the key. I'm this story is just so awesome to know that you didn't give up hope, right? That you knew it was still coming, even though you kept putting it back on your decade planning and saying when the time is right. And it shows not just the power of believing and asking, staying with it, but then also the action. As soon as you had your plan in place, you reached out and said, let's do it. And didn't hesitate. 6 months later, you're at a rocket ship going to space. I mean, so incredibly awesome, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty
So,
excited too, Melissa.
The best is the picture of Jeff, which I think we'll have on the podcast too, because you can feel your joy and excitement of not just going into space, but for us that know your story, years and years of wanting and believing in this and it all coming true. Just the best picture ever.
it's right. It's a testimony to, building your goals and living them out, living your dreams. It's all possible. The only thing that stops you is, what do they say? The 6 inches between your ears.
Exactly.
Here.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So
Oh,
Jeff, has that whole thing changed your life, changed your outlook about life?
they're going to
Uh,
space, right? Like seeing the full moon and having that moment that you talked to us about in New Orleans of seeing the earth. Like, do you look at life different or?
I think that, yes, it changed my perspective. I had been dreaming about it for so long. I had so many expectations. I've looked at millions of photographs from space and everything. So everything that I experienced, the weightlessness and twirling around and hanging upside down. I mean, it was everything that I expected and more. But I'll tell you where the real change came as I reflect on that. And within a few days of going up there, I remember I looked at my wife, Betsy, and just said, my God, can you believe I've been to space? What else could I do? I've set my sights so low in life, and everything that I've wanted is possible and accomplishable. My God, well, I've still got some time left. What do you think I got to be focused on next? And we had the greatest conversation, and it was all about big stuff. And frankly, as you know, for the last 20 or 25 years, I really came to the conclusion that I could accomplish more personally if I focused on helping other people. The more I helped other people realize their dreams, the more my dreams would come true. And frankly, that's been exactly true. And when you develop that perspective and that attitude of gratitude and everything else that goes with it, that positivity, you start realizing, well, just because I've retired now from that job doesn't mean I'm out to pasture completely. It just means I'm changing to other things to focus on. And I have some incredibly huge plans that I'm working on developing now because I've realized that after going to space, I have set the goals way too low for the rest of my life. I've got some stuff to do.
That's incredible. If you hear that now, if you know that, Tom and I are franchise consultants with FranChoice, and our tagline of everything that we do and believe is helping others realize their dreams. And if we think of what Jeff just said, is that's really the more that you give, the more it comes back, and that's what we all live for.
And it works, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
it
it just
does.
it just plain works. What a
Mhm.
revelation.
It's incredible.
It's
That's
so
what we're here.
crazy. And like it's, and they don't teach that at school, and that's for sure. Uh, I was just discussing that with a candidate this morning.
So I had a question about being in space. So once you got there, you've been dreaming of this for however many years. Was it awe-inspiring, or was there a part of you that was, I've already done this, like in my mind, because I've been dreaming of it so long? Like, did it feel like what you thought it would, the weightlessness, seeing the Earth? Was there a part of you that's kind of like, I've almost already been here?
Oh, not at all. No, it was real. It wasn't a dream anymore. It was really happening. And, the whole experience, if I had to criticize it in any way, it was just too short. It went by so fast, but every part of it was amazing. And the overwhelming emotion that I had from, and you can see it in the pictures. You saw the video that shows me, you know, hours before the launch and then walking the gantry and all that. I can't get the smile on my face. I was so freaking happy. And that was the overwhelming emotion, was just happiness, and I'm going to enjoy this, and I'm going to make it be everything I ever thought it could be. And but there were parts in all my thoughts, it had never occurred to me that there would be a full moon, a full harvest moon, right outside my window. And when you look at the moon from the Earth, there's a distortion in the view because of the atmosphere. When you look at the moon from space, it's crystal clear, and you could see mountains and craters and all kinds of things. It was just staggering. I was actually inverted. I was upside down in the capsule and kind of spinning around and having to look out the window. And the entire rest of the time we were weightless, I stayed right there in that position because it's so amazing. Then you would drop your vision down toward the Earth, and it's the only color you see anywhere in the universe is the Earth. The browns, the blues, the whites of clouds, things like that. And it was just stunning. And the atmosphere is such a thin layer on the Earth. And you're up so high looking down on it going, wow, it looks more fragile than I expected it to be. But still, it was yeah, it was one of the happiest moments I've ever had, and it went by pretty quick. And there was stuff, there was G forces when we came back down that were pretty intense, and so that got my attention. But that's okay; it's just part of the experience, and so live it, enjoy it.
Now, when you go through something big like that with other people, there's a bond, right? So do you all keep in touch, the other, would you call them
We have
astronauts
to some
or people in
degree.
space?
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's mostly pretty busy people, and so, we've all had kind of other things to do, but yeah, and they always every time they bring another crew of astronauts in, they go back to people from the past and say, "Would you like to offer any thoughts?" Or, any comments about how they might enjoy the experience more or something like that, and that's kind of fun. It's fun they use something called WhatsApp, which I think everybody on Earth knows except for me. To exchange notes, and so it's fun to see what other people come up with. It's fun to add your 2 cents worth occasionally.
Kind of like our franchisee validation,
There
talking
you
to
go.
other people who have been there. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a great idea that they do that. That's awesome.
What's the number? The number that tells which person you are, of how
I am
many people have
number
been.
I'm number 718. I'm the 718th person in the history of the world to go above the Kármán line. It's not a big group. It's growing, but yeah, pretty cool.
I
Wow.
see a tattoo in your future, Jeff.
If you
You know
could
what?
give me a tattoo without sticking a needle in me, we can talk.
Then you got
I
ahead.
I got a guy for you. I got a guy.
Yeah, Tom knows a few things about tattoos for sure.
That's great. So I was going to ask you if getting a tattoo is a fear of yours, but I mean that in jest. What is a fear that you do wrestle with today?
Tom, I'm not afraid very much. I that's one of the advantages of attacking fear. Every time you realize that there's a fear spot in your life, go after it because it gets easier every time you do it. The last time I experienced real fear that just kind of gut wrenching was probably when I sang in front of our entire group, hundreds of people, and I can't carry a tune in a bucket. And not only did I sing, but the song I sang, which I sing in the shower almost every day, was "I Feel Pretty" from West Side Story, which I realize is a
Nice.
woman's song and everything. I just love the song. I feel pretty. And so, yeah, but every now and again, I will realize, there's something I really am scared to do, and that is like a green light. That sticks with me until okay, fine, time to confront it, time to attack it. Let's go. And so I think probably as you get a little older, my health is so good. And I have not exactly taken care of myself as well as other people, but I exercise every day. I do a lot of other stuff and have been for years because I want my health to stay strong. We travel all the time. I'm leaving for New Zealand in 2 days. And we like to hike and go look at waterfalls and do all kinds of stuff. Well, I know a lot of people a lot younger than me that are immobile. They're grossly overweight or they have all kinds of diabetes issues or things like that. Well, I don't want any of that. I think, my mom and dad both died in their 90s. My mom was almost 98 years old. She had 5 bad days at the end. Okay, that's what I want. Mentally alert and basically being able to walk and go to the bathroom by yourself and stuff like that, and then take me out. So that's probably if I have any fear, what I would say is just keeping the health good. And I'm
That's
tacking the
great. And
exercise, which I don't enjoy.
yeah, yeah. And
You
not to
don't have to
mention the
like it, you just have to do it.
yeah, and your grandkids, that's the reason to stay healthy, right? You want to be able to roll
Exactly.
around on the floor.
I know you guys don't have grandkids yet, but there's nothing better. It's all the joy you ever got out of your own children without any of the responsibilities. If they start acting up or something, you just hand them back. And it's so fun because as the grandparent, you don't have to be the disciplinarian. Yeah, spoil them rotten. Oh yeah, you want to play another game? You want to go out in the driveway and blow bubbles? Let's go blow bubbles. I'm easy. I got time. Yeah, they're great.
So Jeff, my question is about this fear thing, because this is something I struggle with, right? How do I know that is telling me not to go, saber-toothed tiger, as opposed to like, oh, go for it? Like, what's that balance? Like, how do you figure
Yeah.
that crap out?
Well, uh, I'm sure there are sometimes safety issues, and I remember when I've always had a fear of heights, and so I went bungee jumping, and I was scared to death, and that did not dissipate, by the way. I did my 4 jumps, and I will never do it again, but I did confront the fear. I realized, okay, I can get around this if I have to. I'm still thinking about skydiving someday. What's interesting is I never had any fear of height associated with space, and that's the highest I've ever gone, and you come back down pretty fast, but it was
It's
okay.
different.
So, yeah, you just I think, Tom, to answer your point, um, in my experience, if I thought it was a safety issue, I'd probably think twice. I always thought hang gliding would be a lot of fun, but then as I observed for a while, almost every really seasoned pro dies sooner or later hang gliding. One little mistake and you're cooked. Well, okay, probably gonna skip that. But anything else in life that's not life-threatening, public speaking. I was so scared about the idea of public speaking, standing on a stage and talking to people. Are you kidding me? I would get sick to my stomach. I couldn't possibly do that. And as you guys know, through confrontation of that fear, I got to where I'm not only comfortable with it, I don't have any fear. I live for it. I love public speaking. It's so much fun for me. Well, okay, if I'd never confronted it, I would still, not be able to have that enjoyment.
That joy.
Yeah.
Jeff, you're one of the most incredible people I've seen where you don't just take the fear and attack it, but the repeatable, like I keep thinking in my head, it's just a muscle, right? It's a muscle that you continue to use. Now, if you guys know Jeff Elgin, you know that he is not just one of the most seasoned, but one of the most entertaining speakers. I mean, when you get up on stage, everybody is locked in and just loaded and laughing and in the moment with you because one, you attacked it, but continued to do it to now you realize that's a skill and a gift and a joy that you have to give us. And I do remember when you saying, I feel pretty. I don't know about you, Tom, but I remember being there and just having so much fun and just that was such a fun experience.
And I remember it clearly, and I believe you were wearing like a giant rubber duck or something.
Different meeting, but yeah.
I'm getting them
Okay.
confused. There's been so
We
many
had some
meetings.
fun.
Yeah.
We've had a
Well,
lot
and
of
this
great talks.
last week at our meeting, I gave a speech about the space experience, and Linda's comment afterwards was, "Who starts a speech by talking about their underwear?"
Well, things we don't realize about space, right?
Exactly, and the whole experience. And for those of you listening that didn't hear that speech, I basically talked about space diapers. And the fact that I had no clue before we went down there. It was not something I had visualized or anything, but evidently after Alan Shepard, who through flight delays and everything else ended up having to pee in his suit, went up, from that day forward, every American astronaut has worn space diapers. They call them maximum absorbency garments, and they're like a really powerful Depends or something that you put on, and we were required to put them on, but it was part of the experience. Astronauts always have a steak and eggs breakfast the morning before they fly. I had a steak and eggs breakfast, and by God, if they wear a space diaper, I'm going to wear a space diaper. But the idea of talking about that, Linda just goes, do you have no concerns at all about what comes out of your mouth? Well, no, not really. If it's entertaining, I'm good.
Oh, I
Right,
love
right.
it. That's what makes them so good. It's real, it's honest, and we always have a great time.
And it's educational. Who knew? Like you said, I had no idea.
Right. The things you don't think about.
So
Nice.
crazy. But I think that something that I keep on going back to the 3 seconds of gut stuff. And Jeff, you and I had lots of conversations over the years about fear. So I know where you're coming from and how you really came from nothing and built this empire, and had ups and downs and all sorts of crazy things that we went through together. Um, is there anything that you've learned from that was seen by everybody else as negative, but you took it as, in retrospect, a positive? I'm glad that happened, even though it was negative.
That's a
Well,
great question.
glad is a challenging word. When you have setbacks, I think I'm happy to have learned some lessons. I didn't enjoy the process of having to face up to it and go, okay, what can I learn from that? Because it's usually something painful that didn't work out very well. But sure, I could think of so many examples of that. And one of the questions that you had talked to me about before we had this podcast was, have you ever hesitated instead of having 3 seconds of guts and almost lost something really good because of that? And I love that question because it made me think, and yes is the answer. Way back in 1990, I was approached by a company called Great Clips, and they wanted me. I'd been referred in by an industry person that I knew really well, and to take over their development. Marvelous franchise company, but they weren't growing at all. Their momentum was zero for the previous 4 years. No new franchisees. They're opening about 1 unit a year. Just dead in the water. Great franchise system, and they wanted me to come be an employee. And I'd been self-employed and very successful for a lot of years, but I was coming off one of those failures, one of those ones that didn't work out very well. And so I'm about at rock bottom. And yet I thought, okay, am I going to be happy as an employee? And so I turned it down, and they ended up hiring somebody else who didn't work out. And a few months later, I got another call from them saying, can we talk some more? And we did. We spent some more time talking and everything. And finally, I said, I would love this environment. I validated. I called every single franchisee. I tried to find something wrong to give me an excuse to turn them down, but really it was just being an employee when I wanted to be self-employed. So I said, if you will give me a substantial equity earnout as part of the compensation program, so that so that in effect, in my mind, it's my business that I'm building, even though you own most of it. I will come and work with you. And they said, sure. And so that worked it out. And that turned out to be a great experience. I stayed there about 8 years and built this little tiny nothing. I remember when I started, they were the 17th largest haircutting chain. And before I left, they were the largest with a bullet. That we had 1,500 stores growing by 200 or 300 a year when I left. And that momentum continued until they basically ran up to about 5,000 units. It was an experience that I walked away from a number of times mentally, because I was afraid that I would be unhappy as an employee. And then finally just said, okay, well, then change the dynamic, change the deal, make a suggestion. Because I really did want the opportunity. I just didn't want to do it as a strict employee.
Right.
So that's like,
For
Mel,
sure.
that's like the 3 seconds of guts of asking for something that you don't think you're gonna get,
Yeah.
right?
Totally.
which is our next challenge. So, Jeff, when we're dealing with fear, you've taught all of our consultants and everybody at FranChoice that fear manifests itself as logic, right? And we have these manifestations that happen. And so our intellectual brain tries to take over and say, well, actually, you shouldn't do this because XYZ, and kind of that more grounded part of you of saying, stay safe. So how do you help Tom and I and everybody listening? How do you know when it's fear or if really this is just, something that you should push past? Like, how do you push past the manifestations of that?
I think the most common manifestation of fear is a desire to delay. Whatever decision you're contemplating making or something like that, it's always, well, no, I think I better think about that a little bit longer, maybe gather some more information. And quite often your mind will come up with completely irrelevant stuff. I once met a dentist in Columbus, Ohio. Maybe I should call him and see what he thinks about this haircutting franchise. And I mean, I've been guilty of that. Everybody has, where,
Right. Mhm.
the subconscious mind. Everybody's familiar with the term comfort zone. There's a comfort zone in your life where, and you've probably, it's different than it used to be because you have confronted some fear. So your comfort zone sort of expands, but there's always a limit to it. Anytime you complicate or contemplate doing anything outside of your comfort zone, you're going to start experiencing fear. And maybe it just feels like discomfort or disquiet or whatever. And the manifestation that is always so obvious to me is I'll realize I'm stalling. It's time to fish or cut bait. And instead I'm trying to stall. Okay,
Yeah.
that's because of fear. And once I realize it, then I'm just going to get in there and attack and go, okay, what do I really need to know? And let's make a call. And maybe you do it and maybe you don't, but you don't let fear be the deciding factor because fear keeps you from making any decision. Instead, you attack it and get to the point where you make a decision. And no decision is a decision. It took me a long time to learn that, but stalling and doing all that kind of stuff really is a decision to let fear win. And you don't gain anything in your life whenever you let fear win. So even if you confront the fear and make a decision and the decision is, nope, I'm not going to do that. Okay. But I did make a decision.
Yes. That's another muscle, is just making decisions, even if it's what to wear or what to have for dinner or where to go on vacation. The more you do it, the easier it becomes.
Well, and mostly because you're no longer really that scared. If I get up in front of people and sing and it's horrible, these are my friends. They're going to like me anyway. It's going to be okay. They're going to cringe. They might plug their ears. But I mean, I'm the guy that in church can't sing because people 3 rows ahead of me turn around. What's that noise? It's really terrible. But I had such fear of doing it in front of a crowd that why not? Why not just get up and confront it? What could possibly happen that will be as important as overcoming that fear?
And the great part about it is that if it really failed, you would have a great story to tell. I mean, it's,
Yes.
because really, there's not.
It's failing or something not going your way versus regret. I mean,
Yeah.
do you have
Absolutely.
things in your life that you look back and like, oh man, I kind of let fear take over and I have a regret?
I not much. What's the song say? Regrets, I've got a few, but then again, too few to mention. Yeah. I I I don't like to live in that space. Now, are there things that I did, actions that I took that I look back later and go, "I would never do that way again?" Yep, and those are lessons that I've learned by having a situation that didn't work out right and looking in the mirror and saying, "What did I do to cause that to happen, and what can I learn from it so it doesn't happen again?" And that's different than regret. That's learning lessons, and I
Absolutely.
and I don't fault myself for learning lessons.
And giving yourself grace. Sometimes you got to give yourself grace because you're just doing the best you can at that stage in your life.
Exactly.
Sometimes
And sometimes if you're not that bright like me, you just do stupid stuff and go, "What was I thinking?" "Well, obviously I wasn't thinking. It was stupid. Okay, I'm gonna try real hard not to do that again."
I just try to remember that everything that I want in my life lies just outside of my comfort zone. And
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that,
frankly,
and that
a lot of fun loves a lot of positive things are just outside of your comfort zone too, so cracking that boundary and getting out there is it gets easier every time you do it, and the rewards are exponential, at least in my experience. Now, can you sometimes crack outside of that comfort zone and it doesn't work out? Yeah, I'm living proof of that. And then you just move on. What can I learn from it and move on?
as you win, sometimes you learn. And we have to like wrap this up because we could do this for another 4 hours. It's just an amazing conversation, Jeff. My question for you though, you're going up, you're on this rocket, you're going, 5 or 6 Gs, you're full. Was there any point in time when you thought to yourself, man, I wonder if I shut the stove off?
No,
I'm
Tom,
kidding.
I was
I'm kidding.
totally in the moment the entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought a lot about it before, I thought a lot about it after, but during the event, during the entire thing, I'm just soaking it up, every second of it, and even the morning we launched, we had to meet at 3:30 in the morning. That's what time the astronauts had to assemble. I am up at 1:30 in the morning, completely showered, dressed, everything ready to go. Couldn't stand being in my little Airstream trailer anymore, and just got out and started walking around. I ran into a few other people carrying on conversations and everything. Uh, Raring to go. I want to experience that. I remember every second of it. And so, yeah, but a lot of times it's not quite like that. This was just a very, very special experience.
That also
It-
showed that you've done enough in your life that you knew I have been waiting, I have been ready. When you were in it, you experienced it 100%.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
Did. I
Jeff,
did.
thank you. Thank you for everything, not just today, but for changing my life, for always believing in me, being such an important part of my life, and all you've done for all of us, the consultants, all the candidates we've worked with.
You don't like to talk about yourself, but you two are heroes of mine. Melissa, I still remember that time in Phoenix that we had a long conversation by that fire pit outside, and you were so young. I think you were 14 years old or something, but and had such dreams, but just hadn't tested yourself that much up to that point. And to watch you grow, to watch your kids grow, and your life and everything has been so much fun. And Tom, where you came from, I mean, you have such an interesting story, and then to somehow go from all that security and all the tight, rigid rules and everything that you experienced to I'm gonna get my own franchise. I'm gonna do all of these things totally outside the realm of anything anybody in your family had done. And now you look at it and you're an author and a published author, and you've helped hundreds and hundreds of people get in their own business and things. You guys have both got to look at your lives and go, wow, this has
Yeah.
been so cool. And then through decade planning, look ahead and go, I've still got some time on the clock. My God, what can I accomplish next? And that's exciting.
So exciting. Decade
I'm
plan.
inspired.
Why not dream bigger? Why not think bigger? I mean, Jeff, you're a great example of that. And to push fear, to attack fear, I love that. Use your 3 seconds of guts. So thank you again, all of you guys. I hope you've enjoyed this. I mean, this was just so wonderful for us. Please share our podcast, like, subscribe, share it with your friends. We're really pushing this to go to the next level.
Yep. And get out of your comfort zone. And Jeff, as you said, let's light this candle. Let's do it.
That's
Light this
like,
candle, baby. Thanks so much.
thank you.